What if Deadpool came into Star Wars? The cold void of hyperspace shattered like glass. A rift tore open above Coruscant, bleeding crimson energy across the night sky. Imperial sensors screamed warnings as something hurtled through the breach, trailing fire and chaos in its wake. The anomaly crashed through 3 levels of the upper city before embedding itself in the duracrete of a forgotten maintenance sector. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. Security alarms wailed, and from the impact crater, a figure in red and black rose, surveying the alien landscape of endless spires and streams of speeders that flowed like rivers of light. "Well," Wade Wilson said, brushing debris from his shoulders, "this definitely isn't the House of Mouse I was expecting." He staggered forward, katanas rattling against his back. The fabric of his suit singed and torn, his head tilted upward, taking in the impossible vertical metropolis that stretched beyond sight. Either I've been upgraded to the premium cinematic universe, or someone spiked my chimichangas with something spectacular. In the Imperial Security Bureau headquarters, analysts scrambled as their monitors flickered with alerts. The anomaly had triggered every detection system in the sector. Colonel Yularen leaned forward, eyes narrowed at the readings. "Dispatch a squad immediately. Whatever came through that breach, I want it contained." Wade stumbled through the undercity, fingers tracing the rough edges of a wall as he tried to orient himself. His healing factor was working overtime, mending broken ribs and a fractured skull. The world still spun, but between the vertigo, details began to register. The distant whine of engines unlike anything on Earth, the hum of power conduits, the unmistakable silhouettes of beings that were definitely not human moving through shadowed corridors. "Okay, so not Kansas, and definitely not Marvel," he muttered, ducking into an alcove as a patrol of white-armored soldiers marched past. Their boots struck the ground with mechanical precision, and the stylized helmets sent a jolt of recognition through Wade's scrambled brain. No way. No freaking way. He watched as they passed, blaster rifles held at ready positions. Stormtroopers? Actual stormtroopers? His hand instinctively went to one of his katanas. I've either died and gone to nerd heaven, or this is the most elaborate cosplay convention ever. The troopers rounded a corner, and Wade slipped from his hiding place, following at a distance. He needed information, needed to understand how he'd been pulled across realities into what increasingly appeared to be the Star Wars universe. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. If this was real, then he was trapped in a galaxy far, far away, with no obvious way home. At least the franchise is owned by Disney either way, he reasoned, talking to himself as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of Coruscant's lower levels. Corporate synergy for the win. He froze as voices echoed from a nearby alcove, these distinctly different from the modulated tones of the stormtroopers. Sliding along the wall, Wade peered around a corner to see a cluster of rough-looking individuals, a Trandoshan, 2 humans, and something with tentacles sprouting from its head, engaged in heated negotiation. "Davarian wants the shipment by tomorrow," the Trandoshan hissed, clawed fingers tapping against a holstered blaster. "The Hutt doesn't appreciate delays. Tell Davarian that Imperial entanglements have doubled since last month," one of the humans replied, a nervous edge to his voice. "We need more credits to cover the additional risk." Wade's eyes widened behind his mask. "Hutts? As in Jabba? As in giant slugs with crime empires?" He inched closer, straining to hear more. The Trandoshan snarled, revealing rows of pointed teeth. The price was agreed upon. Davarian does not renegotiate. "Maybe he should," the human insisted. "Unless he wants to explain to his Hutt masters why their spice never arrived." Wade leaned forward, utterly absorbed in this glimpse into the criminal underworld of Star Wars, when his foot dislodged a piece of debris. The sound, small as it was, echoed in the confined space. 4 heads turned simultaneously in his direction. Don't mind me," Wade called out, straightening and stepping into view. "Just a tourist, taking in the sights." Loving the whole wretched hive of scum and villainy vibe you've got going here. The Trandoshan drew his blaster with reptilian speed. Imperial spy? Do I look imperial to you? Wade gestured at his red and black suit. If anything, I'm more of a Death Maul situation. Get it? Death Maul? No? He sighed at their blank expressions. Tough crowd. The human smugglers drew their weapons as well. Bounty hunter then, one surmised, eyeing Wade's katanas. Who sent you? The Hutts or the Imperials? Look, there's been a misunderstanding, Wade began, raising his hands placatingly. I'm not from around here. Like, really not from around here. I just fell through some kind of wormhole, and I'm trying to figure out how to get home. The tentacle-headed alien, an Ithorian, Wade's inner Star Wars nerd supplied said something in a language he couldn't understand, gesturing urgently. He says you're lying, the Trandoshan translated. Says he saw you following the stormtroopers. Okay, yes, I was following the Gospel, the stormtroopers, but only because I'm lost. Completely harmless. Wade took a step backward. How about I leave you fine, upstanding citizens to your completely legitimate business dealings, and we pretend this never happened? The Trandoshan fired. The blaster bolt sizzled past Wade's ear, close enough that he felt its heat through his mask. Seriously? Wade complained, drawing his katanas in a fluid motion. I was trying to be reasonable. What followed was chaos. The smugglers opened fire, filling the narrow passage with blaster bolts that ricocheted off the metal walls. Wade moved with preternatural speed, his katanas blurring as they deflected shots with precision that surprised even him. Perhaps the physics of this universe granted him additional abilities, or perhaps the katanas were interacting with the energy-based weapons in ways they never could with bullets. This is actually working, he exclaimed as he danced between blaster bolts. I'm having a lightsaber moment. Except, you know, without the light part. He lunged forward, slicing through the Trandoshan's blaster with one blade, while the other scored a deep cut across the reptilian's chest. The wounded Trandoshan roared in pain and fury, drawing a vibroblade from his belt. The weapon hummed to life with a distinctive vibration that Wade felt in his teeth. Now that's just unfair, he complained as he parried the vibroblade. You guys get all the cool toys. The two human smugglers tried to flank him, still firing wildly. Wade dropped into a spinning sweep that took out the legs of the closer one, then rolled to avoid a barrage from the second. The Ithorian had backed away, frantically speaking into a comlink. Calling for backup? Wade asked, deflecting another shot. Rude. With a flick of his wrist, he sent one katana spinning through the air. It embedded itself in the comlink, pinning the device to the wall along with a small portion of the Ithorian's hand. The alien howled in pain. Sorry about that, Wade called, genuinely apologetic. I was aiming for just the comm, still getting used to the physics here. The remaining human smuggler emptied his blaster in a desperate volley. Wade dodged most of the shots, but one caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. The pain was intense, different from a bullet wound, more burning than piercing, but his healing factor was already addressing the damage. That's going to leave a mark, he muttered, regaining his footing. For about 5 minutes, anyway. The Trandoshan charged, vibroblade leading. Wade waited until the last possible moment before sidestepping, letting the alien's momentum carry him forward. As the Trandoshan passed, Wade brought the hilt of his remaining katana down hard on the back of the reptile's skull. The blow dropped the alien instantly. The last human smuggler stared in disbelief, his empty blaster clicking uselessly. Look at that. You're out of ammo, Wade observed, leveling his katana at the man's throat. So, now that we've had our fun, maybe we can talk like civilized beings from different universes. I have some questions. The smuggler swallowed hard. What do you want to know? First, where exactly am I? I mean, I know this is Coruscant, the architecture and the stormtroopers are a dead giveaway, but when am I? Empire, Republic, First Order? The smuggler blinked in confusion. It's the imperial era, obviously. Emperor Palpatine has ruled for nearly 15 years. Ah, classic trilogy era, got it. Wade nodded. Second question, is there anyone around here who might know about interdimensional travel? Portals? Cosmic rifts? The kind of thing that might help a guy get back to his home universe? The smuggler's eyes darted to his unconscious companions, clearly calculating his chances of escape or rescue. Focus, buddy, Wade prompted, applying just enough pressure with the katana to regain the man's attention. Interdimensional travel? Who would know about that sort of thing? You're insane, the smuggler breathed. But if anyone would know about something like that, it would be the Jedi, or what's left of them. The Jedi are still around? Wade perked up. I thought they were all dead by this point in the timeline. Order 66 and all that. Most are dead, the smuggler confirmed, hunted by the inquisitors. But there are rumors of survivors, hidden away, studying ancient knowledge. And where would I find these rumored survivors? The smuggler shook his head. I don't know. Nobody knows. That's why they've survived. Wade sighed. Not helpful. What about the inquisitors then? If they hunt Jedi, they must know something about Force mysticism, right? Where do I find them? You don't find inquisitors, the smuggler said, real fear entering his voice. They find you. And trust me, you don't want that. I'm starting to think you're not going to be as informative as I'd hoped, Wade muttered. He lowered his katana slightly. Okay, new approach. What about artifacts? Ancient tech? Anything weird that might mess with reality? At this, something flickered across the smuggler's face. Recognition. You know something, Wade pressed. Spill it. There have been rumors, the smuggler said reluctantly, about an artifact recovered from an ancient Sith temple. Something the Emperor has taken a personal interest in. It's being held at a secure imperial facility in the Senate district. Now we're talking. Wade grinned behind his mask. What kind of artifact? I don't know the details, just that it's supposed to have strange properties. The ability to bend reality, some say. That sounds promising. Wade stepped back, keeping his katana at the ready but giving the smuggler some breathing room. Where exactly is this facility? The smuggler hesitated, then seemingly decided that cooperation was his best chance of survival. Sector 7G, near the old Senate building, heavy imperial presence. You'd be insane to go anywhere near it. Insane is my middle name. Actually, it's Winston, but close enough. Wade retrieved his second katana from where it had pinned the Ithorian's comlink. Thanks for the intel, buddy. You've been most helpful. You're just going to leave? The smuggler asked incredulously. Unless you'd prefer I didn't? Wade raised an eyebrow beneath his mask. No. Leaving is good. The smuggler remained perfectly still. Smart man. Oh, one more thing. Wade paused. What's your name? Renth Markov. Well, Renth Markov, when you're friends, wake up, do me a favor, and don't mention our little chat. I'd hate to have to find you again. With that, Wade disappeared into the shadows of the Undercity, leaving the bewildered smuggler to tend to his unconscious companions. As he navigated through the maze-like corridors, Wade's mind raced with possibilities. An artifact with the power to bend reality could be his ticket home. But breaking into a secure imperial facility was going to be a challenge, even for someone with his skills and healing factor. He needed more information, better equipment, and ideally, a way to blend in. The red and black suit, while iconic, was hardly inconspicuous in this universe. Wade found a relatively quiet alcove and took stock of his situation. His weapons were intact, his suit damaged but functional, and his pouches still contained various tools and devices from Earth, none of which might work here or might work in unexpected ways. He had no local currency, no contacts, and no identity. On the bright side, he told himself, no one here knows who Deadpool is. Fresh start, no reputation. No enemies, he paused, yet. The distant wail of sirens suggested that his arrival and subsequent altercation with the smugglers hadn't gone unnoticed. He needed to move, to find somewhere to lay low while he formulated a plan. Above, in the gleaming towers of the Senate district, a different kind of awareness stirred. In his private meditation chamber, Darth Vader opened his eyes, the lenses of his mask reflecting the dim red light. Something had disrupted the Force, a ripple unlike anything he had felt before. Not a Jedi, not precisely, but something powerful, something strange. The Dark Lord rose to his feet, the sound of his respirator filling the chamber with its rhythmic cadence. Whatever had caused this disturbance, he would find it, and determine whether it was a threat or an opportunity for the Empire. In the shadows of the Undercity, Wade Wilson moved silently, unaware that his presence had already been felt by one of the most powerful beings in this galaxy. Unaware that his journey was just beginning, and that the path ahead would challenge not only his abilities, but the very nature of reality itself. The chase began at dawn. Imperial probe droids combed the Undercity, their sinister hum echoing through the maze-like corridors. Wade had spent the night moving from shadow to shadow, piecing together information and avoiding patrols. He'd managed to steal a hooded cloak from an unattended vendor's stall, which now concealed his distinctive suit. Beneath it, his katanas remained at the ready. He paused at a junction, listening to the distant chatter of stormtroopers. Their voices carried through the metal corridors, amplified by their helmet comms. The anomaly was last detected in Sector 4. Squad 7 is sweeping east to west. Copy that. Maintaining perimeter at Junction 12. Wade smiled beneath his mask. They were organized, he'd give them that, but their communication discipline left much to be desired. Every overheard snippet gave him another piece of the puzzle, another gap in their net to slip through. He needed to reach the Senate district, where the mysterious artifact was allegedly held. But first, he required transportation, information, and preferably, a distraction. The Undercity market would provide at least two of those. The market sprawled across 3 interconnected plazas, each a chaotic blend of legitimate commerce and black market dealings. Species from across the galaxy bartered, argued, and exchanged goods beneath strings of flickering lights. Wade moved through the crowds with practiced ease, his eyes cataloging everything: weapons, tech, food, clothing, and most importantly, information brokers. He spotted what he was looking for near the central plaza, a small booth staffed by a diminutive alien with large bat-like ears and wrinkled blue skin. Signs in various languages advertised data, information, discretion. Perfect. Wade approached casually, keeping his hood low. I need information about Imperial security in the Senate district. The alien's large eyes narrowed suspiciously. Information costs credits. You have credits? Wade hadn't considered the currency problem. I'm a bit short on local funds at the moment. Perhaps we could arrange a trade? Services for information. What services could you possibly offer, Nizik? The alien asked, referring to himself in the third person. Wade leaned in closer. I'm very good at acquiring things that other people want, or removing problems that other people have. Nizik's ears twitched. A thief or a killer. Nizik deals with many such beings. What makes you special? In response, Wade drew a concealed vibroblade from the belt of a passing Nikto without the alien noticing. He placed it on the counter between them. Special enough? Nizik's eyes widened, darting between the blade and the Nikto, who continued walking, oblivious to the theft. Impressive, the information broker admitted, but still not worth what you ask. Imperial security details are dangerous knowledge. What if I sweeten the deal? Wade suggested. There's an Imperial patrol scheduled to pass through the Eastern Plaza in about 15 minutes. They might be convinced to look the other way regarding certain transactions happening there. This was a bluff, but Nizik didn't know that. The alien's ears perked up, a sign of interest. How would you accomplish this? Let's just say I'm going to create a distraction, one that will keep Imperial eyes very busy for a while. All you have to do is spread the word to your associates to move any sensitive operations to the Eastern Plaza during that window. Nizik considered this. And in exchange, everything you know about the Imperial Research Facility in Sector 7G, security patterns, entry points, personnel, and any information you have about an artifact recently brought there. The alien's eyes narrowed. Again, you are either very brave or very foolish. That facility is among the most secure on Coruscant. I've been called both, Wade admitted. Do we have a deal? After a moment's hesitation, Nizik nodded. Create your distraction. If it works as you claim, return here. Nizik will have your information. Wade grinned beneath his mask. Pleasure doing business with you. He moved away from the booth, mind already racing with plans. A distraction needed to be significant enough to draw Imperial attention, but controlled enough not to bring the entire sector down on his head. His eyes landed on an Imperial supply depot at the edge of the market, lightly guarded by only 2 stormtroopers. Perfect. Wade circled around, approaching from the rear where a service entrance stood unguarded. The door was secured with an electronic lock, but that presented little challenge. From one of his pouches, he withdrew a small multi-tool. It wasn't designed for Star Wars tech, but the principles of picking locks remained surprisingly universal across dimensions. Within minutes, he was inside. The depot was stacked with crates of supplies, rations, equipment, and most promisingly, several containers marked with warning symbols. Wade pried one open to find it filled with thermal detonators. "Hello, beautiful," he whispered, carefully extracting 3 of the explosive devices. "You and I are going to have some fun." He worked quickly, placing the detonators strategically around the depot. One near a stack of fuel cells for maximum effect, one by the main power conduit to disable security systems, and one by the rear exit as a diversion. Each was set with a 5-minute timer, giving him plenty of time to clear the area. As he slipped out the way he had come in, Wade smiled to himself. In exactly 5 minutes, the Eastern Plaza would become the safest place in the Undercity for illegal activities, while Imperial forces scrambled to respond to what would appear to be a coordinated attack on their supply lines. Wade made his way to a public comm terminal, using it to place an anonymous tip to Imperial security about suspected rebel activity in the Western Plaza, the opposite direction from where he'd planted the explosives. The misinformation would further divide their response efforts. Then he found a shadowed alcove with a clear view of the depot and waited. When the first detonator went off, the explosion was magnificent. A ball of orange flame burst through the roof of the depot, followed by secondary explosions as the fuel cells ignited. The 2 stormtroopers guarding the entrance were thrown clear by the blast, landing in crumpled heaps several meters away. Chaos erupted immediately. Civilians ran screaming in all directions. Emergency sirens blared. The second and third detonators went off in quick succession, collapsing part of the depot's structure and sending a plume of black smoke into the air. Within minutes, the response arrived, stormtroopers pouring into the Western Plaza in response to the false tip, while others converged on the burning depot. Speeders bearing the Imperial Security Bureau insignia descended from above. The distraction was more effective than Wade could have hoped. He waited until the initial confusion had reached its peak, then made his way back to Nizik's information booth. The alien was waiting, eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and respect. "Your distraction exceeded expectations," Nizik said without preamble. "Many of Nizik's associates have already moved their operations to the Eastern Plaza. The Imperials are completely focused elsewhere." "I aim to please," Wade replied. "Now, about that information." Nizik handed over a small data chip. "Everything Nizik knows about the facility in Sector 7G. Security rotations, access points, known personnel. As for the artifact..." The alien hesitated. "What about it?" "It arrived 3 standard days ago, accompanied by an inquisitor. 9th Sister, they call her. The artifact is being kept in a specialized containment chamber on sub-level 3. Rumors say it was recovered from the ruins of a Sith temple on Malachor. What does it do? Wade pressed. Wait, no one knows for certain. But there have been strange occurrences since its arrival. Reality distortions, temporal anomalies, workers in the facility experiencing visions or disappearing entirely. Wade felt a surge of hope. This had to be connected to how he'd arrived in this universe. How do I get to sub-level 3? The data chip contains schematics, Nizik explained. But Nizik must warn you. The facility's inner chambers are guarded by more than just stormtroopers. There are rumors of dark side adepts. And the Inquisitor herself. I'll take my chances, Wade said, pocketing the data chip. One more thing. I need transportation to the Senate District. Nizik's ears twitched in amusement. That has been arranged. A speeder is waiting in Service Bay 12. Consider it payment for the opportunity your distraction provided. Wade nodded in appreciation. You're all right, Nizik. If I make it back from this, I'll bring you something nice. Maybe an Inquisitor's helmet. The information broker's eyes widened in alarm. Nizik wants no such thing. Just go, and do not mention Nizik's name if you are captured. Spoil sport, Wade muttered, but he gave the alien a casual salute before disappearing into the crowd. The stolen speeder was a civilian model, unmarked and inconspicuous, perfect for blending into Coruscant's bustling skylanes. As Wade familiarized himself with the controls, which proved surprisingly intuitive, he inserted Nizik's data chip into the vehicle's reader. A holographic display sprang to life, projecting detailed schematics of the Imperial facility. Wade studied the layout carefully, identifying potential entry points and security measures. The artifact was indeed held on sub-level 3 in a heavily guarded chamber accessible only via a restricted turbolift. Nothing is ever easy, he sighed, guiding the speeder upward toward the gleaming spires of the Senate District. But then again, when has that ever stopped me? As he ascended through Coruscant's vertical cityscape, the bright lights of the upper levels replaced the gloom of the Undercity. The Senate District loomed ahead, a collection of grand structures that housed the political machinery of the Empire. Somewhere among those buildings was the research facility, and within it, possibly Wade's only chance of returning home. He set the speeder on a casual approach vector, just another vehicle in the endless streams of traffic. But as he drew closer to his destination, a familiar sensation prickled at the base of his skull, the feeling of being watched. Wade glanced over his shoulder to see a sleek black speeder maintaining a consistent distance behind him. Its pilot was hidden behind tinted viewports, but the vehicle's design screamed imperial. Looks like I've got a tail, Wade muttered. So much for the subtle approach. He had two options: try to lose the pursuer in Coruscant's traffic, or confront them directly. Neither was particularly appealing given his unfamiliarity with the environment, but Wade had never been one for running away. With a sudden wrench of the controls, he sent his speeder into a nosedive between two towering buildings. The black speeder followed without hesitation, matching his maneuver with practiced precision. Whoever was piloting had received professional training. Wade weaved through traffic, executing a series of sharp turns and abrupt changes in altitude. The black speeder stayed with him, closing the distance with each passing second. This was no ordinary tail, this was a hunter who had found their prey. Realizing he couldn't outfly his pursuer, Wade made a split-second decision. He spotted a maintenance platform jutting from the side of a building ahead and aimed directly for it. At the last possible moment, he cut the speeder's engines, letting the vehicle crash onto the platform while he leapt clear, rolling to absorb the impact. The black speeder circled back, hovering near the platform. Its side hatch slid open to reveal a figure that made Wade's blood run cold. She was tall and imposing, clad in black armor with a distinctive helmet that left only the lower portion of her face exposed. At her belt hung a circular hilt that could only be a lightsaber. The Inquisitor had found him. Well, Wade said, drawing his katanas as he faced the dark side adept, this is going to be interesting. The ninth sister landed on the maintenance platform with predatory grace, her boots making barely a sound against the metal surface. The circular lightsaber hilt remained at her belt, but her posture radiated lethal confidence. The lower half of her face, visible beneath her helmet, curled into a smile that held no warmth. "The anomaly," she said, her voice a controlled contralto that carried easily across the platform. "You've caused quite a stir." Wade twirled his katanas once, settling into a defensive stance. "I tend to have that effect. I'd introduce myself properly, but something tells me you're not here for pleasantries." "You're right," the Inquisitor confirmed. "I'm here because you've drawn the attention of powers beyond your comprehension. The disturbance you created in the Force was felt by Lord Vader himself." "Vader? Big guy, black helmet, breathing problems. I'm flattered, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not Force sensitive. At least, I wasn't in my universe." The ninth sister's smile faltered. "Your universe? Long story short, I'm from another reality. Fell through some kind of portal, landed here, and now I'm trying to get home. I heard there's an artifact that might help with that. Coincidentally, I believe you're familiar with it." The Inquisitor studied him with newfound interest. "The Malachor artifact. Yes, I escorted it to the research facility." She took a step forward. "How did you know about it?" Wade shrugged. "I have my sources. Information tends to leak, even in totalitarian regimes. Especially in totalitarian regimes, actually." "Fascinating," the ninth sister said, though her tone suggested scientific curiosity rather than genuine fascination. "A being from another universe, drawn to the very artifact capable of bridging realities. The Emperor will be most interested in speaking with you." "Yeah, about that. I appreciate the offer, but I tend to avoid meetings with megalomaniacal dictators. Bad for my health." Wade shifted his weight, ready to move. "So how about this? You tell me how to use the artifact to get home, and I'll be out of your hair faster than you can say, 'Order 66. The ninth sister's hand moved to her lightsaber. "That won't be possible. The artifact is under imperial protection for good reason. Its power is unstable, unpredictable. In the wrong hands, it could tear apart the fabric of reality itself. And in the right hands, let me guess, the Emperor plans to use it as a weapon. Another superweapon to add to his collection, alongside the Death Star that's probably under construction as we speak." The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed behind her helmet. "You know too much for a visitor from another reality. Where I come from, your whole universe is a story. A very popular one, with sequels, prequels, spin-offs, the works. I know how this ends, Inquisitor. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well for the Empire." This revelation seemed to genuinely unsettle the ninth sister. Her hand closed around her lightsaber hilt. "Then you are even more dangerous than we realized. The Emperor must know of this." "I was afraid you'd say that." Wade sighed. "I really hoped we could be reasonable about this." With blinding speed, the Inquisitor ignited her lightsaber. The distinctive snap hiss was followed by the emergence of a crimson blade from each end of the circular hilt. She spun the weapon in a dazzling display of control, the blades creating a threatening red blur. "Okay, that's just showing off," Wade muttered, before lunging forward. Their weapons met in a clash that sent sparks flying. Wade's katanas, made of unknown materials from his universe, did not immediately melt upon contact with the lightsaber as normal metal would have. Instead, they resisted, conducting the energy with a strange, vibrating resonance that traveled up Wade's arms. "Interesting," the ninth sister observed, disengaging and spinning away. "Your weapons are unlike any I've encountered." "They're special," Wade replied, pressing his attack with a flurry of strikes that the Inquisitor parried with effortless precision. "Custom made by the prop department. Or maybe they're adapting to your universe's physics. Either way, lucky break for me." The duel intensified, katanas clashing against lightsaber in a deadly dance across the maintenance platform. Wade matched the Inquisitor's supernatural speed with his own enhanced reflexes, but even he could tell she was holding back, studying him, probing for weaknesses. "You fight well for someone untrained in the Force," she said during a momentary lull in their exchange. "I'm full of surprises," Wade replied, breathing heavily. The exertion of matching a Force user was taking its toll, even with his enhanced physiology. "But I'm starting to think this might be a losing battle." The ninth sister smiled coldly. "Now you understand. Surrender, and your knowledge will earn you favorable treatment." Tempting, but I have trust issues with people who work for space fascists. Wade glanced over the edge of the platform, gauging the distance to the nearest skyway. How about a rain check on the whole surrender to the Empire thing? Before the Inquisitor could respond, Wade threw one of his katanas directly at her face. It was a desperate move, easily deflected, but it created the distraction he needed. As the ninth sister batted the blade aside with her lightsaber, Wade sprinted for the edge of the platform and leapt. He plummeted through Coruscant's sky lanes, the wind tearing at his suit and remaining katana. For several heart-stopping seconds, he fell freely, before crashing onto the roof of a passing transport. The impact was jarring, even with his healing factor absorbing much of the damage. Rolling to the edge, Wade peered back up at the maintenance platform. The ninth sister stood at its edge, her lightsaber a crimson beacon in the fading light. She made no move to follow, but Wade had no doubt their confrontation was far from over. He had lost one of his katanas and gained a formidable enemy. But he had also confirmed the existence of the artifact and its potential connection to his arrival in this universe. Now he just needed to reach it before the Inquisitor reported back to her superiors. The transport carried him deeper into the Senate district, unwittingly bringing him closer to his target. As the massive research facility came into view, Wade formulated a new plan. Stealth was no longer an option. The Imperials knew he was coming. It was time for the direct approach, and for that, he would need help. In the shadows of Coruscant's Senate district, Wade Wilson found himself in a predicament that even his unique blend of skills and regenerative abilities might not overcome. The encounter with the ninth sister had confirmed his suspicions about the artifact, but had also revealed the magnitude of the forces aligned against him. Imperial security would be on high alert, the research facility likely locked down, and the Inquisitor herself would be hunting him. He needed allies. In a universe filled with rebels, smugglers, and renegades, there had to be someone willing to help for the right price or motivation. The transport Wade had landed on eventually docked at a commercial loading zone. He slipped away before the automated security systems could detect him, moving through service corridors with stealth honed from years of mercenary work. His destination was a cantina Nizik had mentioned in the data, a place where individuals with specialized skills gathered, many of whom operated outside Imperial law. The blind Sarlacc was tucked away in a nondescript building that belied its importance in Coruscant's criminal ecosystem. Wade adjusted his cloak to better conceal his distinctive suit and remaining katana before entering. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with smoke and conversation, both equally impenetrable to outsiders. Species from across the galaxy occupied booths and tables, conducting business with hushed voices and subtle gestures. Wade made his way to the bar, where a four-armed basilisk was mixing drinks with practiced efficiency. "What'll it be?" the bartender asked gruffly. "Information, for now," Wade replied. "I'm looking for someone with particular talents. Slicing, specifically. Someone who can get me into a high-security Imperial facility." The basilisk's eyes narrowed. "Never heard of slicing or Imperial facilities. Try somewhere else." Wade sighed. This was going to require currency he didn't have. "Look, I understand the need for discretion, but time is a factor. If credits are the issue, they definitely are," the bartender interrupted. "Then perhaps we can come to an alternative arrangement." Wade pulled back his cloak just enough to reveal the hilt of his remaining katana. "I have certain skills that might be valuable to someone here." The basilisk studied him for a long moment, then jerked his head toward a booth in the corner. Try the Mirialan. Green skin, facial tattoos. She might be what you're looking for. If she's interested, you didn't hear it from me. Wade nodded his thanks and made his way to the indicated booth. The Mirialan woman sat alone, her attention focused on a small datapad. Intricate geometric tattoos adorned her pale green skin, particularly around her eyes and mouth, traditional markings that Wade recognized from his universe's Star Wars lore. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. The woman looked up, her eyes a startling violet, assessing him coolly. "Depends on who's asking and why." "Someone with a proposition," Wade replied, sliding into the seat without waiting for explicit permission. "I'm told you have talents that might align with my current needs." "And what needs would those be?" She set down her datapad, giving him her full attention. "I need to access an imperial research facility. Specifically, a secured chamber on sub-level 3 containing an artifact from Malachor." The Mirialan's expression didn't change, but Wade noticed her posture stiffen slightly. "That's not just illegal, it's suicide. The facility you're describing houses some of the Empire's most classified research. It's guarded by more than just stormtroopers." "I'm aware," Wade said grimly. "I've already had a run-in with an inquisitor, the Ninth Sister." This elicited a visible reaction, a slight widening of the eyes, a quick intake of breath. "You encountered an inquisitor and lived to tell about it. Either you're exceptionally skilled or exceptionally lucky." "A bit of both," Wade admitted. "Plus, I have certain advantages." He held up his arm, where a blaster burn from their earlier fight was now nothing more than a faint discoloration on his suit. "Rapid healing, for one." The Mirialan leaned forward, studying him with renewed interest. "You're the anomaly, aren't you? The one that fell from the sky yesterday. There are rumors all over the Undercity. Some say you're a new type of imperial super soldier, others say you're a Jedi with strange powers." "Neither," Wade said. "I'm from another universe entirely, and that artifact is my only way home." She sat back, processing this. "My name is Salona Voss. Was a security systems architect for the Republic before the Empire. Now I apply my skills more selectively." "Wade Wilson," he replied. "In my universe they call me Deadpool. Strange name. I'm a strange guy." Wade leaned in conspiratorially. "So, Salona, can you help me get into that facility?" She tapped a finger against her datapad thoughtfully. "Possibly, but not alone. We'd need a team. And even then, our chances would be slim." "I'm listening." Salona activated her datapad again, bringing up what appeared to be architectural schematics. "The facility has multiple layers of security. Biometric scanners, motion detectors, ray shields, automated defense systems, not to mention living guards and whatever dark side practitioners the Empire has stationed there. Can you bypass the electronic security? Given enough time and the right equipment, yes. But we'd need a diversion to keep security occupied, and someone who knows the interior layout." Wade considered this. "The diversion I can handle. I have a talent for causing chaos. As for someone who knows the interior," he trailed off thinking, "I might know someone," Salona offered. "A former imperial scientist who defected. He worked in that facility until recently, both named Treal Failure. He's in hiding, but I can make contact." "Perfect. What else do we need?" "Muscle," Salona said simply. "Someone to watch our backs while I slice the systems and you retrieve your artifact." Wade nodded. "Any suggestions?" "There's a Wookiee named Koruk, owes me a favor. He's handy with a bowcaster and knows how to keep quiet." "A slicer, an inside man, and a Wookiee," Wade summarized. "It's not exactly Ocean's 11, but it might work. What's your price?" Salona's violet eyes fixed on him. "I don't want credits." "What then?" "Information," she said. "About your universe, about what happens here. You said our universe is a story where you come from. That means you know things, future events, outcomes of conflicts. Wade hesitated. Sharing that kind of information could have unpredictable consequences. It might alter the timeline. The timeline is already altered by your presence, Salona pointed out. Besides, I'm not asking for galactic secrets, just enough to ensure my own survival in the coming years. It was a reasonable request, though potentially dangerous. But Wade needed her help, and time was running out. Deal, he said finally. Help me get to that artifact, and I'll tell you what you need to know. Salona nodded, satisfied. I'll make contact with Trail and Koruk. Meet me at docking bay 94 inches 2 hours. Come armed, but be discreet. Docking bay 94? Wade repeated with a grin behind his mask. Perfect. Always wanted to start an adventure there. As he left the cantina, Wade couldn't help but feel a growing sense of urgency. The ninth sister would have reported to her superiors by now. Imperial forces would be mobilizing, security tightening around the facility. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a dark lord of the Sith had felt his arrival and would be taking an interest in the strange visitor from another universe. The race was on. True to Salona's word, Docking Bay 94 housed a small but capable team 2 hours later. Koruk the Wookiee was even more imposing in person, standing well over 2 meters tall with bandoliers crisscrossing his chest and a modified bowcaster that looked powerful enough to take down a small speeder. He greeted Wade with a skeptical growl that needed no translation. "Nice to meet you too, big guy," Wade replied, offering a respectful nod. "Love the bandoliers, very chewy chic." The Wookiee tilted his head in confusion but seemed to accept the strange compliment with a softer rumble. Trail Failure, the Bothan scientist, was a nervous presence, his fur rippling in constant waves that betrayed his anxiety. "This plan is madness," he said by way of greeting. "That facility is impenetrable." "Nothing's impenetrable," Wade countered. "Not with the right team and the right motivation. And hey, if it makes you feel any better, where I come from, the good guys usually win." "We are not good guys," Trail hissed. "We are criminals about to commit treason against the Empire." "Potato, potato," Wade shrugged. "From a certain point of view, the Empire are the bad guys. Just ask any Jedi." "Oh, wait, you can't, they killed them all," Salona interrupted before the exchange could escalate. "Trail has provided complete schematics of the facility's interior," she said, activating a holographic display that projected a 3-dimensional model of the research building, including patrol schedules and security protocols. Wade studied the hologram intently. "So that's where they're keeping it," he murmured, focusing on a heavily secured chamber on sublevel 3. "What kind of containment are we talking about?" Trail's fur settled somewhat as he slipped into a more professional mode. "The artifact is housed in a specialized stasis field designed to suppress its temporal and spatial properties. It cannot be simply removed or deactivated without proper authorization, which includes biometric data from at least 2 high-ranking officials." "Can we forge the authorization?" Wade asked. Salona shook her head. "Not in the time we have. But we can create a focused power surge that might disrupt the stasis field for a few moments long enough for you to grab the artifact. And that won't, I don't know, tear a hole in reality or something." Trail's fur rippled again. "It might. The artifact's properties are not fully understood, even by imperial scientists. It's unpredictable." "Wonderful," Wade muttered. "So our plan is to break into a heavily guarded imperial facility, fight our way to a highly secured chamber, intentionally destabilize an artifact of unknown power, and hopefully escape before the whole place either locks down or implodes." "That is an accurate summary, yes," Trail confirmed. Wade clapped his hands together. "Well, when you put it like that, how can I say no? What's our insertion point?" Salona highlighted. A service entrance on the hologram. "Maintenance tunnel here. It's still guarded but less heavily than the main entrances. Trail's access codes should get us through the initial checkpoints. And once inside, we'll need to move quickly. she continued. The power surge needs to be initiated from a primary junction on sub-level 2. That's where I'll be, with Koruk for protection. You and Trail will proceed to sub-level 3 to retrieve the artifact. What about the Inquisitor? Wade asked. If she's in the facility, our odds drop dramatically. Trail's fur flattened in fear at the mention of the dark side adept. The Inquisitors rarely remain at the facility for long. They deliver artifacts or prisoners, then depart on new hunts. Let's hope that's the case today, Salona said grimly. If not, our contingency is simple: abort and scatter. Not an option for me, Wade said firmly. That artifact is my only way home. Salona fixed him with a hard stare. Then pray to whatever gods you have that the ninth sister is elsewhere tonight. The team spent the next hour refining their plan, reviewing schematics, and preparing equipment. Salona provided Wade with a comlink and a small explosive charge that would serve as their primary diversion. Koruk checked and rechecked his bowcaster, while Trail nervously reviewed his old access codes, muttering calculations about their probable validity. As darkness fell over Coruscant, they departed for the research facility in a nondescript maintenance speeder. The vehicle's official imperial markings, courtesy of Salona's connections, would help them approach without immediate suspicion. Wade sat in silence during the journey, mentally preparing himself. This mission had stakes beyond his usual contracts. It wasn't just about completing an objective or earning a payoff. It was about finding a way home, back to his own universe with its familiar rules and references. A universe where, despite his many issues, he at least understood his place. The research facility came into view, a blocky, utilitarian structure that stood in stark contrast to the grand architecture of the Senate district. Its facade was intentionally unremarkable, designed to avoid attention despite the critical work occurring within. Salona guided the speeder into a service lane that led to the maintenance entrance, her expression focused and calm. "Remember," she said as they approached, "we are Imperial technicians responding to a reported issue with the environmental control systems. Trail's codes should get us past the initial checkpoint, but after that, we're on borrowed time." "Timing will be critical," Trail added, his fur now unnaturally still in the way prey freezes before danger. "The shift change occurs in exactly 47 minutes. That's our window to reach sub-level 3. Then let's not waste any more time talking about it," Wade said, adjusting his stolen Imperial technician uniform over his suit. The disguise wouldn't withstand close inspection, but it didn't need to. It just needed to get them through the door. Salona landed the speeder in a designated maintenance bay. A pair of stormtroopers approached for a routine check as they disembarked. "Identification and authorization," one demanded, his voice rendered flat by his helmet's vocoder. Trail stepped forward, presenting a data cylinder with remarkably steady hands. "Environmental Systems Team. We received an alert about fluctuations in sub-level 2 and 3. Clearance code TK-427. The stormtrooper inserted the cylinder into a reader on his wrist gauntlet. There was a tense moment as the system processed the information, during which Wade casually let his hand drift toward his concealed katana. Finally, the reader beeped affirmatively. "Clearance confirmed. Proceed to Environmental Control, Section D." "Acknowledged," Trail replied with a crisp nod. The group moved past the checkpoint, Wade deliberately keeping his head down as they entered the facility. Once inside, Salona led them to a service turbo lift that would take them to the sub-levels. "So far so good," she murmured as the doors closed behind them. "Don't jinx it," Wade warned. "In my experience, that's exactly when things start to go sideways." The turbo lift descended smoothly, stopping at sub-level 2. Here, they would split up as planned. Salona and Koruk to the power junction, Wade and Trail continuing to sub-level 3. "You have 20 minutes to reach position," Salona reminded them as she and the Wookiee prepared to exit. "When you're in place at the artifact chamber, give the signal." We'll initiate the power surge, and you'll have approximately 30 seconds to secure the artifact before the backup systems engage. Got it, Wade confirmed. 20 minutes, then boom. Salona gave him a long look. Good luck. Don't need it, Wade replied with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. I have genre awareness on my side. The doors closed, leaving Wade alone with the increasingly nervous Bothan as the turbolift continued its descent to sub-level 3. The true challenge was about to begin. Sub-level 3 hummed with power. The air felt charged, as if the very molecules were vibrating with energy. Wade's skin tingled beneath his suit, sensing something beyond normal perception. The Force, perhaps, or the artifact's influence bleeding through its containment. This way, Trail whispered, leading him through sterile corridors that branched in complex patterns designed to confuse intruders. The Bothan moved with the certainty of someone retracing familiar steps, navigating the labyrinth with minimal hesitation. They passed several security checkpoints, Trail's codes granting them access with decreasing ease. At each door, the verification process took longer, the system more thoroughly examining their credentials. Their borrowed time was running out. How much further? Wade asked after they cleared the third checkpoint. 2 more sections, Trail replied, his voice barely audible. The artifact chamber is in the high-security research wing. As they rounded a corner, Wade grabbed Trail's arm, pulling him back sharply. Ahead, 2 Imperial scientists, accompanied by 4 stormtroopers, were exiting a laboratory. Wade and Trail pressed themselves into an alcove, waiting for the group to pass. They shouldn't be here, Trail whispered, his fur rippling in distress. That section is typically closed at this hour. Change of plans, Wade decided. We need a distraction now, not later. He reached into his uniform pocket, retrieving the small explosive charge Salona had provided. It was intended for their escape, but necessity dictated a change in strategy. Wade activated the device, setting it for a 1-minute delay, then rolled it down an adjacent corridor. What are you doing? Trail hissed in alarm. Improvising, Wade replied. When that goes off, all eyes will turn that way. We go the opposite direction, fast. Exactly 1 minute later, the charge detonated with a thunderous boom that reverberated through the metal corridors. Alarms immediately blared to life, emergency lights bathing everything in pulsing red. The stormtroopers and scientists ahead ran toward the explosion, exactly as Wade had predicted. Now, he urged, pushing Trail forward. They sprinted down the emptied corridor, no longer concerned with maintaining their cover. The Bothan led him through 2 more security doors, using his codes one final time to access the high-security research wing. The artifact chamber is at the end of this section, Trail said, breathing heavily from their dash. But without Salona at the power junction, we stick to the plan, Wade interrupted. She'll know we've accelerated the timeline from the explosion. Trust your friends, Trail. The Bothan didn't look convinced, but continued forward. The research wing was eerily quiet despite the alarms, the laboratories they passed empty, save for humming equipment and mysterious experiments suspended in various apparatuses. They reached a massive durasteel door marked with warning symbols in multiple languages. Beyond it lay the artifact chamber. This requires special authorization, Trail said, studying the control panel. We need Salona's power surge. Wade activated his comlink. Salona, we're at the chamber, ahead of schedule due to unexpected company. Please tell me you're in position. Static crackled for several agonizing seconds before her voice came through. Nearly there. Ran into more resistance than expected. Koruk is keeping them busy. Give us 2 minutes. Make it 1, Wade replied. Our diversion won't distract them for long. He turned to examine the chamber door more closely. It was formidable, designed to contain whatever lay beyond as much as to keep intruders out. The control panel was unlike any Wade had seen before, with biometric scanners and what appeared to be a force-sensitive crystal embedded in its center. Is there any way to bypass this without the power surge? He asked Trail. The Bothan shook his head, not without proper authorization or... He stopped suddenly, ears perking up. Someone's coming. Wade heard it too, the distinctive rhythmic footfalls of stormtroopers approaching rapidly from the direction they had come. Their time had run out. "Hide," Wade ordered, pushing Trail toward a recessed doorway. "I'll handle this." "What are you going to do?" the Bothan asked, eyes wide. Wade drew his katana from beneath his technician uniform. "What I do best, create chaos." As Trail concealed himself, Wade positioned himself in the middle of the corridor, abandoning all pretense of disguise. The approaching stormtroopers rounded the corner, 6 of them in formation, blasters raised. "Halt," the lead trooper commanded. "Identify yourself." Wade gave a theatrical bow. "Name's Deadpool, interdimensional traveler, mercenary extraordinaire, and currently, the guy who's going to ruin your day." The stormtroopers opened fire without further warning. Wade moved with preternatural speed, his katana a blur as he deflected blaster bolts in a display that would have impressed even a Jedi. He charged forward, closing the distance between himself and the stormtroopers before they could adjust their tactics. The fight was brief but intense. Wade's combat style, a chaotic blend of martial arts, sword techniques, and pure unpredictability, confused the imperial soldiers, whose training had never prepared them for such an opponent. Within moments, all 6 lay incapacitated, their white armor scorched and dented. Wade returned to the artifact chamber door, barely winded. "Silona, we're out of time. Where's that power surge?" His comlink crackled to life. "Initiating now. Stand clear of the door." The lights in the corridor flickered, then died completely. For several heartbeats, there was absolute darkness, followed by a deep thrumming sound that seemed to come from the very walls. The control panel on the artifact chamber sparked violently, and with a heavy mechanical groan, the massive door began to slide open. Emergency lighting activated, casting everything in a dim red glow. Wade peered into the chamber beyond, and what he saw made his breath catch. At the center of the circular room, suspended in a shimmering energy field, floated an object that defied easy description. It appeared to be a pyramidal crystal, but its edges seemed to blur and shift, as if it existed in multiple places simultaneously. Its surface glowed with internal light that pulsed in hypnotic patterns, cycling through colors that seemed to include hues Wade had never seen before. "The Malachor artifact," Trail whispered, emerging from hiding to stand beside him. "A Sith holocron, but unlike any other. They say it contains knowledge of reality manipulation that even the ancient Sith feared to use." "It's beautiful," Wade murmured, taking an involuntary step forward. "And somehow familiar." "Be careful," Trail warned. "Its effects on organic minds are unpredictable. The scientists who study it must be rotated every few hours to prevent psychological damage." Wade barely heard him. The holocron seemed to be calling to him, whispering in a language that bypassed his ears and spoke directly to his mind. It knew him. It had brought him here. His comlink suddenly erupted with Silona's voice, urgent and strained. "Wade, we've got serious problems. Imperial reinforcements have arrived, including..." Her voice cut off abruptly. "Silona? Silona," Wade called into the device, but received only static in response. A new voice came over the facility's announcement system, cold and precise. "Attention all personnel. Intruder alert in Research Section 5. Full lockdown protocols engaged. All security units converge. Priority target is to be taken alive by order of Lord Vader." Wade felt a chill run through him at the mention of the Sith Lord. "Trail, how long will that door stay open without power to the security systems?" "Not long," the Bothan replied nervously. "The backup generators will activate any second, and when they do, then we don't waste time," Wade decided, striding purposefully into the chamber. As he approached the holocron, the energy field surrounding it pulsed more rapidly, as if responding to his presence. "How do I deactivate the field?" he asked over his shoulder. Trail hesitated before following him into the chamber. "You don't. not without proper authorization, but if the power fluctuations affected it as intended, there might be gaps in the containment. Wade circled the floating holocron, studying the shimmering energy barrier from all angles. And if I just reach through one of these gaps? Best case scenario, you retrieve the holocron, Trail said. Worst case, the field could destabilize completely, with unpredictable consequences, reality distortion, temporal displacement. So, basically what I'm already experiencing, Wade noted. Seems like an acceptable risk. Before Trail could protest further, Wade spotted what he was looking for, a flicker in the energy field, a momentary thinning of its structure. Without hesitation, he thrust his hand through the gap, reaching for the holocron. The sensation was indescribable. It felt as if his atoms were being pulled apart and reassembled, his consciousness fragmenting and coalescing in rapid alternation. Images flashed before his eyes, glimpses of other realities, other versions of himself, other possibilities. His fingers closed around the holocron, which felt both burning hot and freezing cold simultaneously. With a surge of effort, he pulled it free of the energy field. The moment the holocron left its containment, several things happened at once. The energy field collapsed with a thunderous concussion that threw both Wade and Trail backward. The chamber's lights flared blindingly bright before failing entirely. And most alarmingly, the holocron in Wade's hand began to glow with increasing intensity, its surface crawling with symbols that seemed to write and rewrite themselves continuously. "What's happening?" he shouted over the cacophony of alarms and the holocron's own strange, keening vibration. Trail struggled to his feet, eyes fixed on the device in Wade's hand. "It's destabilizing. Without proper containment, its powers are manifesting uncontrolled." The chamber door suddenly slammed shut, the backup systems engaging as predicted. They were trapped, with a potentially reality-warping artifact rapidly approaching some kind of critical state. Wade stared at the holocron, which now hovered slightly above his palm, spinning slowly. The whispering in his mind had grown louder, more insistent, forming words and phrases he could almost understand. Home, power, choice. "I think it's trying to communicate with me," he told Trail, who was backing away in evident terror. "The holocron contains Sith knowledge," the Bothan warned. "It cannot be trusted." But Wade felt something else from the artifact, not malevolence, but recognition. It had brought him here for a reason. It was offering him options. Before he could explore this further, a new sound cut through the chaos, the distinctive snap hiss of a lightsaber igniting. Wade turned to see the chamber door glowing red at its edges, metal melting as a blade cut through from the other side. "That would be the Inquisitor," he said grimly. "Trail, get behind me." The Bothan needed no encouragement, retreating to the far side of the chamber as the lightsaber completed its circuit. The cut section of door crashed inward, and through the opening stepped the Ninth Sister, her crimson blade casting sinister shadows. "The anomaly," she said, her voice filled with cold satisfaction. "And the artifact. Lord Vader will be pleased." Wade held up the holocron, which continued to pulse and spin above his palm. "One step closer, and I'll destroy it." The Inquisitor laughed, the sound utterly devoid of humor. "You have no idea how to destroy such a thing. Even the Emperor himself approaches it with caution." "Maybe not," Wade admitted, "but I'm pretty good at breaking things. And this particular thing seems rather unstable at the moment." As if responding to his words, the holocron's glow intensified, and a small rift began to form in the air above it, a tear in reality through which Wade glimpsed what looked like the New York skyline. Home. The Ninth Sister's eyes widened behind her helmet. "Step away from the artifact, now." "I don't think I will," Wade replied. "See, it's offering me a way home. And unlike you, it doesn't seem interested in bringing me to your boss for whatever nefarious purposes he has in mind." "You fool," the Inquisitor snarled. "That artifact doesn't offer, it takes, it corrupts. The ancient Sith who created it went mad with the knowledge it contained." "Yeah, well, I was never entirely stable to begin with, so I like my chances. Wade took a deliberate step backward, the holocron floating with him. The rift expanded slightly, showing more of the world beyond his world. The ninth sister deactivated one end of her double-bladed lightsaber, holding the weapon in a more conventional single-blade configuration. I won't allow you to leave with it. You don't have much choice, Wade pointed out. Unless you want to explain to Vader how you let both me and his precious artifact disappear to another dimension. For a moment, they stood at an impasse, Wade with the increasingly unstable holocron, the ninth sister with her lightsaber poised to strike. The rift continued to grow, the edges of reality fraying around it like torn fabric. There is another option, the Inquisitor said finally. One that might benefit us both. I'm listening, Wade replied cautiously. The Emperor seeks knowledge of other realities, other possibilities. With such knowledge, the Empire could expand beyond this galaxy, beyond this dimension. The ninth sister lowered her lightsaber slightly. You could serve as his emissary. Return to your world with the holocron, establish a permanent connection between our realities. In exchange, you would be granted power, position, immunity. Wade laughed. Become an imperial agent in my universe? Hard pass. I've seen how the Empire treats its servants. He glanced meaningfully at her prosthetic leg, a detail from Star Wars lore he remembered. Even the Force-sensitive ones. The ninth sister's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. She lunged forward with Force-enhanced speed, her lightsaber arcing toward Wade's head. He barely managed to raise his katana in time to deflect the blow, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. Trail, get to the rift, he shouted as he parried another strike. Get out of here. The Bothan hesitated, torn between escape and loyalty. What about Salona? Choruk? I'll find them, Wade promised, though he had no idea how he would accomplish this while fighting an Inquisitor and managing an unstable Sith holocron. The ninth sister pressed her attack, driving Wade back with a series of powerful, precise strikes. Her lightsaber moved with blinding speed, testing his defenses from every angle. It was all he could do to keep the blade from finding flesh, let alone counterattack. You fight well for an untrained being, she acknowledged during a momentary pause in her assault. But you are no match for the dark side. She raised her free hand, and Wade felt an invisible force close around his throat, lifting him off the ground. His katana clattered from his grasp as both hands instinctively went to his neck, trying to pry away fingers that weren't there. Now, the Inquisitor said calmly, approaching him as he dangled helplessly. The holocron. Wade's vision began to dim as his oxygen depleted, but through the encroaching darkness, he saw the holocron still floating where he had left it, begin to pulse with renewed energy. The rift above it expanded suddenly, the edges rippling outward like a shockwave. The ninth sister sensed the danger too late. The rift's expansion caught her in its effect radius, and the invisible grip on Wade's throat vanished as the Inquisitor was thrown backward by a surge of energy. He dropped to the floor, gasping for air. The chamber began to shake violently, pieces of equipment tearing free from their moorings to orbit the increasingly unstable rift. Reality itself seemed to be coming apart at the seams, the boundaries between dimensions growing thin and permeable. Wade crawled toward the holocron, fighting against the gravitational distortions that now filled the room. Trail had taken cover behind an equipment bank, while the ninth sister struggled to regain her footing, her lightsaber casting wild shadows as the unnatural storm intensified. When Wade's fingers closed around the holocron once more, the whispering in his mind became clear, resolving into distinct thoughts that were not his own. Choice. The word echoed in his consciousness with crystal clarity. The holocron was showing him possibilities, a map of potential realities branching outward in infinite permutations. He could return home, leaving this universe forever. He could stay, wielding the holocron's power for whatever purpose he chose, or he could destroy it, sealing the breach between realities, but potentially trapping himself here permanently. The ninth sister had regained her feet and was advancing once more, her face contorted with fury. "Give me the holocron," she demanded, voice barely audible over the roar of the collapsing reality barrier. Wade looked at the rift, at the tantalizing glimpse of home it offered, then at Trail, who had risked everything to help him, and finally at the Inquisitor, whose dark side powers represented a threat not just to this universe but potentially to his own, should the connection between worlds remain. In that moment of clarity, Wade made his choice. He raised the holocron high, feeling its power surge through him. "You want it, come and get it." As the ninth sister lunged forward, Wade channeled every ounce of will into the holocron, directing its energies not toward escape, but toward containment. The artifact's glow became blindingly intense, and the rift began to contract, drawing in the chaotic energies that filled the chamber. "What are you doing?" The Inquisitor screamed, her lightsaber slashing wildly as she fought against the pull of the collapsing rift. "Cleaning up my mess," Wade replied. With a final surge of effort, he thrust the holocron directly into the center of the rift. The resulting explosion of energy was unlike anything Wade had ever experienced. It was as if reality itself rebelled against the violation, tearing apart and reassembling in a cascading wave of dimensional forces. The chamber, the ninth sister, Trail, everything around him seemed to dissolve into particles of light, then darkness, then something beyond either. Wade felt his consciousness expanding, then contracting, then scattering across multiple planes of existence simultaneously. He was everywhere and nowhere, experiencing all possibilities at once. And then, abruptly, he was somewhere specific. He opened his eyes to find himself lying on a familiar rooftop in New York City. His suit was torn and scorched, his body aching in ways his healing factor was already addressing. The holocron was gone, presumably destroyed in the process of sealing the rift and returning him home. Wade sat up slowly, surveying the familiar skyline of his own universe. Everything appeared normal, as if he had never left. As if the entire Star Wars adventure had been nothing more than a particularly vivid hallucination. But the lingering scent of ozone and the distinctive scorch mark on his suit, where the ninth sister's lightsaber had grazed him, told a different story. It had been real. All of it. He stood, wincing as his healing factor worked overtime to repair the damage from his interdimensional journey. The sun was rising over Manhattan, painting the skyscrapers in golden light. A new day in a familiar universe. Wade reached for his comlink before remembering it wouldn't work here. There was no way to contact Salona, Koruk, or Trail, no way to know if they had escaped the Imperial facility, or if they had been captured, or worse. "I hope you made it out, guys," he said to the empty air. "May the Force be with you," and all that jazz. As he turned to leave the rooftop, something caught his eye, a small, crystalline shard embedded in his suit, glowing with a faint internal light that pulsed in a familiar pattern. A fragment of the holocron, somehow transported back with him. Wade carefully extracted it, holding it up to the morning light. It seemed dormant now, its reality-warping powers either depleted or contained within its diminished form. But it was proof, tangible evidence of his journey to that galaxy far, far away. He pocketed the shard, already contemplating its possibilities. Perhaps someday he might find a way to use it to open a small, controlled connection between universes, not for invasion or conquest, as the Emperor had intended, but for something else, something better. Next time, he promised himself, I'm bringing tacos to Trail. And maybe challenging Vader to a dance-off. With that thought, Wade Wilson Deadpool, mercenary extraordinaire and now interdimensional traveler, headed home, carrying with him the memories of an impossible adventure and a tiny fragment of a power that could, in the right hands, bridge realities. In the vastness of the multiverse, a new possibility had been born, a thread connecting two universes that were never meant to touch. And somewhere in that infinite tapestry of existence, the Force continued its eternal dance, forever changed by the chaos Wade had brought to its carefully balanced design.